all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world. She walks into mine.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
There's no crying in baseball.
You talking to me?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You can't handle the truth!
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hello and welcome to the Old School Movie Club podcast. My name is Sean Patterson, once again joined by my friend Kevin Levine.
Hey,
Kevin,
everybody.
How are you doing? How are you doing, Kevin?
I'm okay.
I think we're both tired right now.
Yeah.
We need to try to get it.
Got a lot. I have a lot that I have to get done in the next few days, and I've not done anything, so it's kind of taking a toll on me. I do.
Well, anyways, let's just get right into the movie that we watched this week, Citizen Kane. And I will say right off the bat, this movie is by far, it felt like the oldest movie that I've ever seen, and we've ever watched on the show. And Casablanca was only made a year after it, but this movie felt 10 years older than that movie.
It did. Again, Citizen Kane is from 1941, but a lot of the stuff that was done in Citizen Kane was the first time that any of that stuff had been done. So at the same time, while it was I like the movie. So in my opinion, while it was a good movie, it also did a good job of testing the waters and trying out a lot of different things for the first time. Yeah,
it doesn't, as a viewer nowadays, it doesn't hold up quite as well as a movie like Casablanca. It feels very, very dated. Like more, even though, like I said, Casablanca was made in 1942, and this feels much older. And I get the whole, a lot of things. This was like the first time for a lot of things in film, but it just, as a viewer today and not knowing any of that stuff going into it, it just feels old, and it has a lot of the old like cliches in film. I feel like of like all those black and white movies that you didn't want to watch when you were a kid. You know, the music notes, the dun-duns, and it has all of that stuff. And it just feels super duper old. And I'm not saying I didn't like the movie, but first impressions, it feels very, very dated and old.
Very much so.
So, what were your bright points about this movie? Like, what you said you liked the movie and you said it's a good film. And also, why don't you expand upon like what was some of the innovations that this movie had?
Oh goodness. Well, maybe you could find some of that stuff. I wasn't able to find it in time, but there was really good acting again. Orson Welles, dude was 25 years old when he was making this film. And he directed it, he wrote it, produced it, he was the lead actor.
Really?
So
I didn't
this
know
guy,
that.
Orson Welles, has a ridiculous amount of talent for someone who was only 25 at the time.
Yeah, I mean that he plays with a lot of range, or I guess not a lot of range, because Kane is the same character throughout his entire life. Really, he doesn't really change all that much. But you know,
now what does change
you
about
see a lot of, like,
Charles Foster Kane throughout the years is his appearance.
Yes.
And which is, you know, the makeup in this film, while it's very obvious at times, you can kind of see the lines on his face where the prosthetics meet up with his actual skin.
It's still good though, and that's the benefit of it being black and white. It's a lot harder to tell with stuff like that. That's one of the benefits of black and white and film. Is, you know, you can hide some of those details a little bit.
Yeah, and they did a great job of hiding that for most of the film, but it's still, they made Citizen Kane, they made Charles Foster Kane, they made Orson Welles look like he was in his 50s, in his 60s, even though he was still only 25.
Even when it was normal.
He sounded like he was that age, too.
Yeah, he did. And even when he was like a normal age, he still didn't look 25. He looked like he was like 30s, 40s to me, honestly. Because he had that old-timey, he had the old-timey tycoon look to him. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just think everyone back then looked, for the most part, looked a little older than they actually were.
Yeah. It's probably true.
That's kind of like how now we've got 12-year-old girls who look like they're 16.
Yeah. Anyway, the story of the film all is like centered around this one thing. It's this reporter is trying to find what what Kane's last words meant to his life, and like if this could explain like any kind of missing whatever. And then the spoilers, I mean, this is trying to like kind of like a book club thing or a movie club thing. So if you didn't watch the movie, spoilers, at the end of the movie, they basically say, oh, it probably wasn't anything. It probably was just, something that he'd not been able to collect or something that he had lost. And you shouldn't look so far into one thing about a character or something like that. That was like the moral of the story.
Yeah.
And then you find out that the Rosebud is like his sled, like when he was a kid. Like the first scene, like not the first scene in the movie, but I guess when the reporter goes to the first character, that's the scene in the movie.
Well, and you see the sled earlier on in the movie too, when we're flashing back to Charles Kane as an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like,
yeah.
During that scene when he goes to the first, I think it's the first guy that he talks to, the reporter.
When he's talking in current time or in the flashbacks?
In the flashbacks. When he's talking to Thatcher, and Thatcher tells his story of like how he knew Kane. So basically, how this film goes, and it jumps around in Kane's life. So there is this reporter trying to find out what does Rosebud mean. So he goes to all these people that knew Kane really, really well, and tries to get from them like if they knew anything about this Rosebud thing, and then what all they knew about Kane through his life. And the first guy, that's when you see the sled and stuff, and you see that he comes in this giant pile of money. I still don't understand how he came into the giant pile of money. Who died? Like, who was he related to that died that gave him a lot of money? Like, what? I didn't get that part.
Like, they gave Kane all the money?
Yeah.
No, he was taken in by Thatcher.
He was just taken in?
Yeah.
You just gave him $60 million?
I guess. Well, like, you saw in that opening scene not the opening scene, but that scene when he's a kid playing in the snow, and Thatcher goes and talks to his parents, and they agree that Thatcher should take him in, because it would set him up for a better life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it leaves it kind of up to interpretation a little bit, so it's just my opinion. I think that he just got that money from living with Thatcher. Thatcher was a rich guy.
Yeah, it was that part was a little confusing to me, like how he got into the money. And of course he uses his money like he doesn't care about his money because he didn't really earn his money, so but he did build a semi-successful business for a while until life things got in his way, and then he kind of was his ultimate downfall of his business.
Yeah.
But I like the line is like, well, if I'm spending this line exemplifies how much he didn't care about it. He was like, if the newspaper is losing $1 million a year, that means I can go on for 60 years, losing $1 million a year. I can keep it running for 60 years then. So he just wanted to that's like how little he cared about his money. And he just wanted to try to be like, and people call him out on it all the time, is he just wanted to be liked by everybody.
Yeah.
But anyways, So, what were your bright spots? You said you liked the acting in this movie. Anything that really stands out to you?
Besides the acting and the screenplay, which the screenplay won an Academy Award.
Really?
And that was the only Academy Award that this film won. But outside of that, my favorite aspect of the film would be the lighting.
Yes, that's actually a really good point. When they're going through the... So, one of the first scenes in the movie, if it's like that newsreel thing, right? And then right after the newsreel ends, they have that group of people. That's where they set it up. Like, we're gonna go find out what Rosebud is, and everyone's face is just covered in black. Like, I don't ever think you actually see the reporter's face that is kind of going through the story at all, and throughout the entire movie. I think his face is always kind of like covered.
The only time you ever really see his face is towards the end of the movie when he's making the jigsaw puzzle analogy.
Yeah, exactly. Which I really, really liked. That it was kind of like shrouded in darkness and stuff like that. Like how, kind of like what Kane's life was, you know?
Lots of darkness.
Lots of darkness.
But it was really good. I don't remember what was happening during this particular scene, but there was one particular room that came up in this movie. It was a massive room. It was completely open. All that was in it was a table and a skylight. And the light was shining down perfectly on that table, and it was absolutely beautiful.
I'm trying to remember this scene. I don't remember the scene at all.
It was... God, I don't remember what characters were in the scene either. I don't remember. Let's see if I can try to look it up while you keep talking.
I have another question for you too. Why would you think? Because people do consider this, if not the best movie of all time, one of the best movies of all time.
Right.
Why do you think people might think that? Because I thought it was a good movie, and it's really, really dated, and I know I'm like a naive child. But
well, real quick, I know listeners can't see this, but Sean, I pulled up that image that I was talking about.
So when Kane is going, or no, when the reporter is going to read Thatcher's memoirs, basically.
Yeah.
So, like in a safety deposit box in a bank or something. I think that's where that is.
Yes, but this shot is so beautiful.
It is very, very, it's very, very well done. And a lot of the shots and stuff, like, are well done. It's just, I don't get the best movie of all time thing. That doesn't make sense to me, personally. But why would you think that people would say something like that about this movie?
I, again, would say it's probably got to be related to the significance of this film in the film industry. Just because it was the
milestone.
first film to attempt so many things and pull it off fairly well. And at the time, that this film came out, even though it didn't see a lot of success at the time, at the box office, but this film would have been wildly impressive to critics at the time.
I mean, I definitely like the movie. It doesn't really hold up to me, and I understand the whole, like, milestone marker kind of achievement. I still don't think that's enough to give it, because Casablanca is better than this movie.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In my opinion, Casablanca is much better than this movie. And Casablanca is not even a genre that I would necessarily like.
Casablanca is, though, on this list, the third
best movie of all time.
Best film of all time. I know. This is we're looking at the AFI Top 100 Films list that came out in 2007. And the top three are Citizen Kane, The Godfather, and Casablanca.
Which we've all seen now. And I would rate that list Godfather, Casablanca, Citizen Kane. if I had to rate those three, I probably wouldn't have Citizen Kane in my top three. If I had to go like deeper in the top three.
No, I mean, in all-time favorites, no.
No. But again, it is worth a watch, if nothing else, for just some of the cinematography and lighting. And I could see why filmmakers might love this movie, and movie buffs might love this movie, because it probably was the first time that people like edited in such a way and used lighting like that. And Casablanca did lighting really, really well too, but this did come before Casablanca.
And I would say the lighting is better in Citizen Kane than it was in Casablanca.
Yeah, I would say that too. Like, I really, really like that's one of the, like you said, it was a highlight for you, but that's one of the highlights for me. It's probably the best highlight, along with the cinematography. And, I have another question too. I want to know, how do people, because I know how people edited audio back then. They like literally cut and taped film together, or taped, like audio rolls together. And I want to know how he did so many fade-ins, like picture fade-ins and fade-outs, because he loved that edit. He loved that transition, the fade-in, fade-out thing. Because it was every other scene probably had that. That was just a side note.
I think it was the first film to ever do that.
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah. So he was just showing off.
Yeah, he loved that thing. He was like, look at this. I can fade from one image to the next. And then like every single whenever the reporter would go to the guy, it would do like the dream sequence, like fade out kind of thing. Yeah, I like the movie. Not my favorite. I wouldn't call it the best of all time, but it is still worth a watch just for the historical factor.
Absolutely. I've got an article pulled up here that says what makes Citizen Kane the best film ever made. And I'm trying to skim through here and see if there's any other facts that I can pull from it. But this article's not really giving me much.
I mean, again, from a historical factor, I can see it. I understand.
Yeah.
Does it hold up to today's, would a kid from today like this movie? Probably not.
A kid? No.
Probably not. And it's closed for most 20-year-olds. Like, most 20-year-olds probably wouldn't like this movie. Most 30-year-olds might not like this movie. But if you do enjoy film, and you do enjoy, learning where film, started from and began, and obviously there's a lot more films before 1941, but this was a giant leap in the film industry, and then you should watch this movie just from that fact alone. Anyways, I think we've discussed our thoughts enough about it. Let's go into our final verdicts on this movie. What are you giving this movie?
So I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 because I want to acknowledge its historical significance. When I watched the film, I was astounded by a lot of the technical aspects considering the time it came out. Granted, a lot of those effects would look really bad now.
Oh yeah, because the whole fade in, fade out thing is something you get in any editing program. That's the first transition you learn.
Yeah, I can fade in and fade out on PowerPoint.
Yeah, exactly.
But part of that is you got to look at it with the perspective, or try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's seeing it
in
when it came
1941.
out.
Yeah. Even
though we're seeing it, in 2017.
Yeah.
So we've got both angles to try to look at.
And so I'm gonna give Citizen Kane a 3.5 out of 5, and I'm giving it 3.5 out of 5 for the same exact because watching the film for just the film and the story and stuff, it wasn't that interesting to me, honestly. It was.
I was gonna say the same thing. For me, the weak point, and not that it's truly a weak point, but I wasn't as invested in the story as I would have hoped for.
Yep, and I do like all the
ironic,
technical
which
stuff.
is ironic considering it won a Screenplay Academy Award.
That is very ironic. That's why I was so surprised when you said that. I was like, really? What? But
I still like the story. I was invested in it enough to stay interested the entire time.
I didn't fall
I just
asleep,
think it was,
and I was really tired when I was watching this.
It was a little weaker than the rest.
But yeah, I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5, and I'd still suggest that any kind of movie fan or film buff go watch this movie. Just see it for yourself. And there's probably some things that me and Kevin are just missing about it too. Like, don't let us deter you from watching this because we said it wasn't like because Kevin's still getting it 4 out of 5, and it's still like a historic movie, and you should know where film comes from if you're like a giant film fan, So I still recommend.
And we're giving it slightly lower ratings than it has pretty much everywhere else.
Oh yeah, it's got 100 on.
I mean, I'm looking on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, it's got 100% fresh, but its average rating is a 9.4 out of 10.
Yeah.
On IMDb, it has an 8.4. On Metacritic, it's got a 100 from critics and an 8.4 from audience.
See, that 8.4
and on
makes a lot more
Letterboxd,
sense.
it's got a 4.3 out of 5.
That 8.4 from audiences makes a lot more sense though. So critics and stuff love the movie. But general audiences don't like it as much. It's like,
well, if you look at the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a
It's like
4.1 out of 5.
yeah, it's still really good.
So it's right there where we're ranking it.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I think film critics and film directors and stuff probably love this movie because this is probably the first thing that they saw, depending on how old they are. Maybe not the first thing they saw, but this probably inspired a lot of people to become directors and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's enough about Citizen Kane. All right, Kevin. So Kevin is going on the show's going on a 2-week break. Kevin is going to a film festival in Texas.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be on a cruise when he gets back, so we're going to have a 2-week break. But when we do get back, we'll be doing our horror month. So all classic.
Oh, wow. We are starting the horror month then.
It is. That's October
Goodness.
when we get back, man.
I know.
It crept up on us. But we're going to be doing 4 horror movies for October.
Should we announce what those are already?
Yeah, actually, I think I have them written down right here. Hold on one second.
Because we still haven't decided what order we're going to do them in, except for one of them we said we wouldn't do until I'm able to be there.
Yes, exactly. So we have The Shining, Psycho, Halloween, and Evil Dead.
Yes.
Now, I think The Shining or The Psycho are probably the most popular among all those 4.
Or maybe not most popular, but most popular, most
probably
well known and critically acclaimed as well.
Exactly. So let's start off with I'm gonna regret saying this. Let's start off with Evil Dead.
I think the Evil Dead's a good one to start off with because, from what I understand, it's more of a horror comedy. Kind of spoofs the zombie genre a little bit.
Thank you. Again, we discussed this last week a little bit, but I'm not good with horror movies. Nope.
Everyone who's talked to me about the Evil Dead has said it's a good way to jump into the horror genre because it's not
Great.
about the jump scares per se. It's more cheesy and campy, and you'll get a good laugh out of how bad some of the effects look in the movie.
Amazing. I love it. I love what you're telling me right now.
Make sure you find the right one though, Sean. There's a couple remakes of it.
Oh, okay.
You wanna find the Sam Raimi directed
Evil Dead
version of the Evil Dead from the mid '80s, I believe it is.
Okay. So we're going to be starting with Evil Dead, and then look forward to the coming weeks of Halloween, Psycho, and The Shining. And I think we should leave The Shining for our big finale. Actually, no, let's leave Psycho for our big finale.
Yeah, and then we would watch The Shining for the episode that I'm able to be in Charlotte.
Exactly.
There's a documentary coming out. I'm not sure when it's actually releasing, but I'm gonna have the chance to see it at Fantastic Fest this coming week. It's called 7852, and it's basically a documentary about how the sound effects were done for Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
All right. Well, there it is. We've got Evil Dead coming up, and after we get back from the break, we'll be going on a 2 weeks break, and then the third week, Evil Dead will come. Like, we'll do the episode for Evil Dead, and then we'll do Halloween, The Shining, and Psycho.
We got a lot of time to watch The Evil Dead now.
Yeah, we do. And see, but I wouldn't sell it, so that's my primer into the horror films. But I just, in my opinion, it wasn't even a horror movie. It was like a Goonies / Stranger Things adventure coming of age movie. It wasn't really scary at all.
Such a good movie, though.
It's good.
So good.
I'm not as high on it as a lot of people, but it's still a good movie. And the cast was amazing from that movie. But anyways, we talk about old movies here, not new movies. And but we might have like a little interlude from Kevin talking about some of the movies he watched at the festival. It's kind of like a short little mini episode.
For the ones that I'm able to talk about at the time.
Exactly. But anyways, Kevin, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Stardust at KevWatchedAFilm and on Letterboxd at KevWatchesFilms.
And you can find me at Letterboxd /PatPat. And then you can follow the show on Twitter at OldSkoolMovieSK. At OldSkoolMovieClub SK. No?
Not club. Old School Movie SK.
I got it right the first time, Kevin. What the heck? Old School Movie SK. Anyway.
15 characters or less, man. It's got. We couldn't fit club in there.
I know. Okay. All right. I think that's it for us.
Yeah. Go watch movies.
Go watch movies.